Yes, Michael. Yes! Hello? My internet went out! I'm sorry! I was confused too! Hold on. Let me... I just messaged them. Dang, you guys lost all of those comments. That sucks. I'm fine. I just lost internet. It's okay. What's more important? The tall grass or some random flowers? I say the random flowers. Also, what made you think I died? I'm all good. My internet just went out. Did that other live keep going? I just froze! You thought my sickness finally took me. That was a bad joke, I'm sorry. I couldn't even see any chats you guys sent. I just thought you... I don't know what happened. I was very confused. I'm sorry. Really? I don't have enough wood, are you kidding me? What's y'all's favorite show? Amazing World of Gumball, that's a good show. Very good show. My favorite show is... This is a hard one. I have a lot of favorite shows. My Adventures of Superman. Very good show, but it's on Adult Swim. That's the only, like, thing. So I don't favorite has-been, because I don't... Golden Girls! Oh my god, I love the Golden Girls! Rose is always going to be my favorite. And Blanche. Those two are my girls. Thank you for being my friend. Travel down the road. All dead. All of them died. There are no Golden Girls left. It's so sad. I'm sad now. Oh, I'm probably gonna die again. Random patch of unbreakable grass. Oh, did I die again? Oh, there it is. So is my uncle. Oh my god, my uncle and my aunt love Golden Girls. They actually got me Golden Girls pops. I thought I died again. I was scared for a second. You're a power and a confidant. Thank you for being my friend. Travel down the road and back again. You're a power and a confidant. I miss Betty White. Betty White was Rose, by the way. She was an amazing person. Even outside of her acting, like, she spent so much money on, like, animal rescues and stuff like that. She had her own animal rescue. Like, she was the best woman ever to walk the face of the earth. Betty White was a queen. I would do anything to have her back. I never liked the Big Bang Theory because I just thought it was dumb, smart humor. Like, I liked some of it, but I didn't love it. Like, I would watch it whenever I, like, felt like laugh, but I didn't like it that much. I prefer Young Sheldon because it's less dumb, smart humor. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what I'm going with. And by dumb, smart humor, I mean it's like, here are some smart jokes for dumb people, and here are some jokes that dumb people can't understand, but smart people will, and yada yada. Oh yeah, and here's the main autistic character. Vex, welcome! My internet went out, I'm sorry. We're talking about TV shows. Yes, hello. You're a pal and a confidant. Travel down the road and back again. Yeah, my internet just died. Wasn't me that died, we're fine. My internet ain't good. Okay, genuine question, guys. For my Angel Dust redesign, what are some of your biggest want change? Because I love Angel, the only issue is that he's very red, he isn't pink. He is red. If you color pick Angel, he is red. So he will be changed to an actual hue of pink, not red. But other than that, what do you want changed about Angel in the next video? Yes, Micah. Yes, Micah. What did you draw? Yeah. That person that one gotcha kid that like abuses animals in her videos. I'm worried. What did you draw? Bella the Wolf is a gacha creator who abuses animals in their videos. Not real animals, but it's highly suspected that she does abuse real life animals too. Because her, one of her family members has actually stated that. So like a not good person. That's what Bella is. Which kind of sucks, because her art, like, her art is very good. She's, like, a waste of talent. Nice. Alright, see you when you get back, but hopefully I'll still be alive. There's just a bunch of grass floating around everywhere, because I don't care if the grass despawns. Oh, I forgot about that part. I completely forgot that she's doxed a few people, actually, now that I think about it. Oh, gross. I need to go find some more logs. Yeah, she is a little cray-cray. I should probably save some of this, grass. Alright, let's go back to the greenhouse and sort everything. Oh crap, I completely forgot I was cleaning up over here. I don't get people that say that, like, I'm God and stuff. Because, like, if you were God, why would you want to be on this earth? Why would you pick this planet to inhabit? You're a God, pick anywhere else. This place sucks, man. I thought that she got her email address deleted because of all the crap she posted. Fix it, sure, why not? I'm gonna need to scoot closer or something, because I cannot see. Okay, so first off, I forgot to water all of these. Second off, should I turn back on the creepypastas? Because I have nothing to talk about. So for real when I say this. Does Bella still have an account? Like, I seriously don't remember the last time I saw her. Welcome back, Vex. Y'all never answered me earlier whenever I asked you what y'all's favorite flower was. Mine is a bleeding heart. Tired, which is weird because I slept today. But I'm not gonna. Right away. That song was so good, and then he ruined it. Okay, I want to say something real quick that I used to say as a kid, and I feel like people are gonna get mad at younger me, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't care. Like, I really don't. But whenever I was younger, Gravity Falls was coming out, and as a lot of Gravity Falls fans know, Build Dip was a huge ship. Like, it got very popular very quick. Well, I would, like... Build Dip was, like, a very big ship. I would, like, read the fanfiction and stuff like that, all of that. I was deep into it myself. Anyway, one day a kid at my school, she shipped Ford in Build, which turned out to be canon for one, and I'm like, okay. There goes everybody's argument against me, because, anyway, against younger me. Anyway, whenever I was younger, I used to say to this girl, well, you ship Bill and Ford. Bill would have still been 1,000 years old whenever Ford was a kid. That's literally what I would say, because everyone would be like, Bill's 1,000 years old and Dipper's a child, and I'm like, he was also a child when Ford was a child. And that used to make a bunch of people mad. I just wanted to tell that story. I hope I didn't enrage anybody. But I'm kinda right. Younger me was just a wee bit right. Now y'all can put me on blast. Really? Nothing? I'm genuinely surprised. I have 2 ships, Dipper and Bill, but not, anymore. Yeah. younger me was, I don't know what was wrong with younger me to even come up with that. But younger me was kind of right, but also like, you know, Dipper is still a child, so it was a little weird. The younger me was right though. In the sense of, if you ship Ford and Bill, Bill was also 1,000 years old whenever Ford was a child. You get what I'm saying, I hope. Yes, you're right, he is 13. But also, if you do the math, he's currently like 20-something. KL. What are you doing? What does that mean, Vex? I'm confused. But what I was saying was, a lot of people think that Dipper and Mabel are still gonna age, and if the show comes back, they're gonna be adults now. I just wanted to say that. No one hates me for saying that, telling that story, do they? Do I look like I give a fuck? Dilly F. I'm so mad. I don't know where this other piece is, but I'm missing a piece of thing to break. And I'm upset about it. I actually got doxxed once because of a Bill Dip comic. Not comic, a story I wrote forever ago. Someone doxed me for it. And it wasn't even because it was Bill Dip. You want to know the reason why these people decided to dox me over my crappy little fan fiction? Yeah, I got doxxed. Like, everything in the comments, full legal name, address, school, place of school, all of it. And the reason they decided to dox me wasn't because it was Bill Dip. No, no, no. It was because Bill wasn't trans. Not Bill. It was because Dipper wasn't trans. I got doxxed. All because Dipper wasn't transgender. People were like, you know what, I'm gonna drop his home address, full legal name, birth certificate. People are a little too cuckoo with their headcanons sometimes. Because, like, what the fuck? I have a few weird stories about my fanfictions. For example, if you go onto my Wattpad page, please don't, actually, there is a No, 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 no. No, 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 no. They're not saying, no, no, no. They were saying dilly gaff, which means does it look like I give a fuck? No, it's not even, it's a heavily, it's a heavily loved theory that, Dipper is trans. And people like to claim that, Alex confirmed it. Alex Hirsch, and he never did. Like, he never said it was canon that Dipper was trans, but everybody believes it so bad. And because I didn't believe it, and I didn't make it canon in my fanfiction that had a non-binary person explain their pronouns and why, okay, so pretty much what happened is I have this OC, their name's Strawberry, they are Wendy's non-binary partner. I know he isn't. I know, but people think he is so badly. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, I love trans headcanons on some people. But, like, for Dipper, I just don't personally headcanon it. So everyone thinks that he is. It's very annoying. So yeah, as I was saying, there's a scene with my non-binary character who is dating Wendy, and they explain their pronouns to Dipper, and Dipper's like, okay, I get that, you be you, and people were like, upset that I didn't bring up that Dipper was trans, and this one person kept going on and on explaining how he was trans, giving points and stuff, and I just responded, well, this is my personal world and my personal headcanons. So it doesn't really matter what you think, and I'm sorry if I bother you, but I am going to keep Dipper as a cis male. Whether you like it or not. But no, they just decided to dox me because I didn't make Dipper trans. So that fanfiction is gone. It's like long gone. Because I even deleted it from my doc. It was like 4 years ago. It was called Love of a Triangle or something like that. It was so cringy. I wish I could use that. I would love to use that skin, but I can only use skins on here that I pay for. See, look. Look, I'm an emo man now. Also, I'm gonna complain real quick, and that is about the fact that they made Millie straight. They decided to change Millie from being bisexual to make her straight. And it was confirmed with that new picture, and it makes me so mad! All I remember. Ah! You guys are talking about Ethereums? Is that what it's called? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't remember, but I know what it is. I was actually gonna start making masks to give to my friends, but then my friends started hating me. Because I had some friends that were Ethereans, and they liked how I painted stuff, and they wanted me to make them some masks, and then I tried to make them some masks, and then they freaked out on me one day, because, I accidentally used the wrong animal for one person. But I did use the right animal, because they had 7 animals, but because they weren't that Therian that day, they freaked out on me. Like, bad freak out. And it wasn't even my fault either. They didn't tell me that they were different today. I was just going off of what they were when I met them, and then I got in big trouble. Very sad. You guys want to hear the story of the fucked up game I was supposed to voice act in. And I'm starting to wonder if the unfair. Okay, so I was supposed to voice act in this horror sim game where you play as a little girl. I was supposed to voice act the little girl because I can do this voice very easily, and it was like very much like a kid, and they wanted that kind of voice. So I was gonna do it. It was supposed to be a dark horror thing, which I was fine with. I love horror. I didn't really like that they were bringing a kid into it, but sometimes dark horror can be done very well. For example, The Black Phone. With kids, like, that's a good example of one that's, like, fine with kids, because it doesn't go as disgusting as this guy did. This guy literally drew a panel in the game. It was gonna be in the game, and it was the little girl I was supposed to be playing as getting assaulted by her father, and her mother was watching. That's whenever I backed out. I was like, yo, dude, no, I am 16. This is disgusting. I'm still a minor, so you shouldn't even be sending this to me in the first place. But on top of that, this is highly illegal. I am out. I don't care how much money you were going to give me. I'm gone. I don't need money that badly. I was gone. I left so quickly. And then this guy, I think his name was either Zeus or Zell. I called him Zell. I do know that. Zell was a really cool dude. He was the artist and the writer's close friend. Yeah, it was disgusting. And as soon as I left that server, he texted me and said, I'm going to his house now. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, I'm breaking his jaw. He should not have sent that to you. You are a minor. And then Zell didn't text me for a few months. Yeah, he was put in jail for a little while because of assault. Then he showed the proof about me being like a minor and stuff like that to the police, and also showed the stuff that that guy, the artist and the storyboardist, what he sent from the server. There was like 7 of us on the server. There wasn't that many. It wasn't that big. It wasn't even big public yet. He commented on one of my Sans dubs. Anyway, and then yeah, he went to jail for assault because he was a creep. Zell went to jail because he punched the main storyboard artist and broke his jaw, but at the same time, if the police would not have gone there to get Zell, Zell would probably have not got the police actually to go to that kid's house, because I don't remember exactly why, but there was like a big reason why the police didn't like to mess with that family of that kid. But Zell was like, this is what Zell told me. He said, I told those cops to look through his computer now, or I will get out of these cuffs and continue beating him. So they looked through their computer. He had a hard drive full of very, very nasty stuff, and he got arrested. And then Zell was like, I understand, you probably don't want to talk to me because, you know, I invited you to this. Zell is who invited me to it. Zell was a nice dude. He wasn't creepy at all. I know they do. They also have they also make a lot of zoophilic stuff. It's super gross. That's why I'm stealing their stuff. It's mine now. Oh yeah, Vex, they make a bunch. Okay, I'm sorry to ruin VivziePop for you, Vex. They have made kind of like what I just explained happened with the storyboard artist. They have made that with the teacher and a 16-year-old, and the teacher was 27 or 30. Than the 16-year-old. But then she aged up the 17-year-old, so it was all fine. But yet she also drew the 16-year-old doing stuff with snakes. So yeah, that kind of ruined Serpentius for me. Yeah, Viv is super gross. That's why I am stealing Has-Been and Hello Boss. It's mine now. But yeah, unfortunately, Viv did do all of that. Very gross, very bad. I'm sorry I ruined it for you, but like, I would rather you know and hear it from somebody who will give it to you gently and won't freak out on you, like how somebody did to me. Somebody literally cussed me out for liking VivziePop before I even knew she did all of this. So you're lucky you found out through me and not somebody who calls you the R word and a bunch of other stuff just because you didn't know. But yeah, I'm glad I'm glad you know now. That's why I haven't bought any of the standees, any of that, because yeah. Because I was going to, and then I found out all of that. Viv is very, very gross. But hey, I'm gonna be rewriting it to be less gross. Another thing that she does a lot, if you haven't noticed, like, it's very obvious with Angel, but she tries to sexualize, the forcing stuff onto people in a bad way. Like, she sexualizes it a lot. She always has, unfortunately. So yeah, just be careful with that. I will still watch, but for the show, not her. Yeah, because she doesn't really write as much anymore. There's like 7 different writers, so I think we're good. I don't think that we're gonna get any of that creepy stuff actually in the show. Kind of sucks though, because we're just stuck with it with Angel, because that's supposed to be a big part of his story. So there's like no chance that wasn't gonna make it in, unfortunately. But yeah, Angel is one of her big things. Like, she also has this problem with sexualizing gay men in some spots. Like, well, she used to. It's not as bad anymore, like, actually, but she did used to. If you look up Vivzie Pop's old art, she actively had a character that was a predator that was chasing around a child. And, like, I'm not saying... By child, I don't mean... Good job. Good job. Pirating is awesome. Anyway. Whenever I say child, I don't mean a teenager. I mean literally a 6-year-old child she had getting chased around by this predator. That kind of looked like Colleen Ballinger, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. I like the angels. I like the idea of, like, a certain group of angels being evil. I don't like that all of them are evil. Like, I'm an atheist, you know, I'm like, I don't really care that much. But at the same time, I'm like, why would you make them this bad? Oh, okay. I love Angel, but at the same time, I'm like, because, like, it's so clear, once you know Viv's history, it's so clear. Angel is just supposed to be there to fulfill her fantasies. I'm sorry, I know, I'm ruining it. Also, not to mention... Go ahead. Not to mention, she also has a very big problem with, saying slurs. Like, slurs she's not even supposed to be saying. Like... And she also has a problem with making her characters say the slurs. Because in the first ever thing of Hell of a Boss, Blitz says the R slur. Oh yeah, she's been caught saying that too. She has that. Like, forever ago. Well, how do I put this? There's no proof But because we don't know for sure, but on her old, like, one of her old Discords, like, one of her friends sent a bunch of stuff from, like, way back. Like, it was her old something, I don't remember what. But nobody can confirm or deny if it was Viv, because the name, you know, it's not for sure. That one's questionable. But, like, yeah, she has an issue. Not to mention, if you want to watch Hazbin Hotel and you're colorblind, for example, I'm colorblind to reds and purples. Yes, I can. I am colorblind to reds and purples. So just think how hard it is for me to watch Hazbin. Most of it blurs together. I'm not like I can't see them. No, it's pretty much purples and reds, they blend together for me. They look the exact same. I can tell the hues, but that's about it. So everything is just mushed together. So I had to crank the brightness all the way up just to be able to tell what was going on, and it was so annoying. And then for the blindness my grandpa has, he's pretty much completely colorblind. Easiest way to put it. Everything would be gray, and it would all be the same grays except for the outlines of the characters. Like, it's pretty much all gray. If you take a screenshot of Hazbin and put it through a colorblind analysis website, you're not going to be able to tell things apart. I don't want my grandpa to ever watch it, but still, like, it's a good example. I'm not actually allergic to that much stuff. What are you allergic to, though? You're allergic to metals? I feel bad for you. How do you drink water? I'm sorry, that was such a dumb question, but, like, such a for real question, because, like, there is metal in water. But that question sounded so dumb. I'm sorry. What, Vex? Why are you sad? Are you sad because of Viv? I'm sorry. I know. I was sad too when I found all of this out. Oh, cheap metals. Yeah, I'm allergic to those too, actually. I can't wear earrings, like, ever. They have to be pure gold for me to wear them. Yeah, Claire's, exactly. Claire's is the worst. I don't know why Viv had to just ruin her whole life like that. Well, clearly it didn't ruin her life because nobody cares except for a niche group of people. And then even if we are fans of the show, we can't be fans of the show because Viv has put her weird stuff into the show. For example, Sir Pentius's joke about having two penises. Because, fun fact, that's the animal, snakes are the animal that Viv is most attracted to. You can tell by her old art. And that is so gross to say. So, Sir Pentius is ruined for me. Go to sleep! I ain't stopping you. Go to sleep if you want to go to sleep. Alright, sleep good. Bye-bye. Viv kind of ruined Has-Been for me, because she didn't do good enough getting rid of all of her bad stuff. Well, I mean, she tried. She deleted all of her old stuff as soon as Has-Been blew up. Also, Angel is such a cool character, and then she just... I still love Angel. I'm probably gonna keep his story fairly similar, but he was a very cool character and actually used his mob intel a lot originally in his guns and stuff like that. And then, yeah. Vex, what do you want me to talk about? Because I don't think you want to hear any more about Viv and her grossness. Yes, I have taken my meds. I have taken my medicine. God, it feels like you're taking care of an old man. When you say, Dad, did you take your medicine? Sounds like I'm 26 in the nursing home. I'm 26. It sounds like I'm 74 in the nursing home. Why'd you say 4? Would be nice right now. A cup of coffee. I might make me a cup of coffee. I don't know what to say, What do you want me to do? Sounds so good. I mean, it doesn't affect me like how it affects normal people, but I still want coffee. You'll get there. Do you want me to turn on some crazy pastas when I go after I go pee? 'Cause I gotta pee really bad. When I get back from going pee, I can turn on crazy pastas or some Reddit stories, whichever one you want. I just like to do these live and hang out. I don't want to make you guys bored or anything, but I also don't want to end the live prematurely. Vex, you might have ADHD, because caffeine actually is supposed to make kids with ADHD mellow out. That's why I drink coffee before bed. Alright, I'll put on creepypastas. I just got to pee. Oh, let me just break these real quick so they're not in here. Alright, I'll be back. I need to pee. Yeah, you probably... yeah, you might have ADHD. But yeah, hold on. Do you see that? If I had my creepypasta written out, I would read it to you, but I don't. It's just all floating around inside my head. I know you're the only one here. It's because nobody wants to join my lives because I'm boring as fuck. I mean, come on, would you still be here if it wasn't for me getting you some creepypasta?
Wiping the floors, taking out the trash. But I couldn't do it. I was being pulled into a dark hole. And with the loneliness came the paranoia.
My favorite creepypasta is Eyeless Jack and Laughing Jack. I just realized how dumb I just sounded. My favorite creepypastas are both named Jack.
At first,
You would stay or you would leave. I need you to specify. I keep pausing this because I know that I'll get drowned out by the creepypastas. I is dumb.
accepted being lonely, but it had reached that point where I started to realise my dumb behaviour, trying to reach out to people to tell them I wasn't feeling right. There was only stress, and nobody had time to talk to a stupid college student. It was only the nerves. I hoped it was. I locked myself in my room and I couldn't go out anymore. I had to send to my teachers and cancel my class.
Who is Tiki Toby? Tiki Toby is a character that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. For some reason the creator got rid of him, probably because of the shipping drama, but I still think I still consider him as real. He is still creepypasta. Just because you, the creator, say you don't want him used anymore isn't going to stop the internet from using him. He was just pretty much thrown out into the public domain. Easiest way to put it. But Tiki Toby is a kid with Tourette's. He was bullied really bad, and he was abused by his dad. We'll get to Tiki Toby. We'll get to Tiki Toby, don't worry. We'll get to Tiki Toby. Tiki Toby's one of my favorites. We'll get to him. How many times did I just say tick in a row? Jesus.
Day after day. But it didn't matter. They didn't send anything in search of me. So I just kept spinning in my room. Day after day. Week after week. It was an evil circle I couldn't get out of. Then it happened. My room had been my cage. I wouldn't eat. I couldn't. It even reached that point where my roommate would come and knock on my door to see if everything was okay. But I didn't open it up. I just yelled back in reply that she should go away.
Yeah, he has a hole in his face. How do you know that? Are you looking at pictures of Tiki Toby? We can listen to Tiki Toby's story in a little. We're gonna finish Puppeteers, and then I'll turn on Tiki Toby. I love to say his name.
And she did. She didn't care enough to make a second attempt. She never knocked on my door again. It was just me and my doll, watching over me and every breath I took. Then there was that night. This night, actually. It was a night I was so used to spending alone. I didn't even bother trying to turn on the lights as I stepped from my bed and pulled on my sweater and a pair of untied Converse shoes before I made my way out of my room, which I hadn't left in so many days. I needed fresh air, and my window was jammed and unable to be opened. It was in the middle of the night, maybe even morning. It was still dark outside, so I assumed it was still night, even though I hadn't checked the time yet. I couldn't care less. Anyway, it was a pain in the ass to come out of my room to not wake my stupid roommate up. All I needed was to get out for a minute or two and get some air, maybe go out and buy some cigarettes. I had promised myself to stop smoking, and lately, that was the only thing I had been doing. Smoking. I only snuck out late at night to go get some new cigs. It was a bad thing, I knew, but it was the only thing to keep me going and kept me awake and sane. But that particular night, there was something strange. Someone had unlocked the gate out to the street. It hadn't happened before, and I thought the landlord held a hard hand to keep it locked at all times. Didn't bother, just pushed the little red box out of my pocket and started smoking. The good thing about the night was that there was no one around. No one to annoy me with their stupid voices some cold on my warm skin and some smoke inside my lungs, I decided to go back in and maybe try to watch some television. Nothing good aired at night, but it was always worth a try. I stepped back into the building and shrugged off the last bit of unwanted cold, making myself ready to sneak back into my room. But as soon as I came to the staircase, there was something in the way. Or someone. Someone was standing on the stairs. I had to admit, it did scare me to some point. But a second later, I was back to my not giving a shit attitude and
Jesus.
tried to walk up the stairs without confronting the person standing in the way. At first, I thought it was my roommate, but the shadow of the person was too manly, too big to be the petite roommate I knew. I tried to pass the odd stranger
Stop being creepy.
and just slightly bumped my elbow into his. But he didn't move or speak. He just stood there. It was creeping me out. The scenario was too freaky, but of course there were other students in this apartment building just waiting to scare the shit out of some other poor first-year student. But I was...
It's not gay! I think it's... Wait, is it? Because I don't think they allow male and females to bunk together. Huh.
wasn't the one to be fooled. To see my true last action when you least expect it, I go back here! For first-year student, but I wasn't the one to be fooled. I didn't stop until I heard a sound. It was one of those sounds where it just causes your concentration to break shut. It was distracting, scary, unnerving. I couldn't continue, so I just froze in position and tried to turn around to face him. At first, there was a cracking sound, the sound that had startled me. Then there was sobbing, a young man's voice sobbing, but it wasn't human. Yeah, maybe to some degree, but the voice was pitching up, like it was breaking through a bad static screen. I stood only a few steps away from the man in the shadow. I wanted to break away from my sudden frozen state of mind, but I couldn't. I was stuck, like my feet had been nailed.
Yeah, I'll turn it off. I'm sorry, I don't know why I didn't just turn it off. Wait a minute, it didn't stay down. It got turned all the way back up. I turned this down earlier. You see me turn it down to 50.
To the stairs. I was trying to speak, but he spoke
No
before
problem.
I had the chance to. It was getting clearer to see now, since spending some more time in the darkness. My vision was beginning to clear. He was wearing some kind of jacket, black. Everything black. A sewn cap with strings falling out from a hole in the back, also black. His hair was torn but long, like he hadn't been able to cut it for a long time or showered it.
No, this
His
is
appearance
Puppeteer.
was etching inside my mind, but his voice appeared like a dagger in my ears. When he spoke, he made off another static noise, like a broken radio. But he spoke in words. I tried to calm myself down, but I was already too scared to try to bring myself to relax. You're here alone, aren't you? I swallowed hard. The thought of somebody spying on me this entire time was filling my head with the urge to vomit, feeling disgusted by this man and his voice. I just shook my head. No response. I couldn't give him a reply. I should have. maybe it could have changed this whole situation for the better. Maybe if I hadn't been there now, scared for my life. But I was, and he knew that as well. But when I didn't give him the response he expected, he turned to me, and his sight was one of the most terrifying yet fascinating faces I had ever seen. He wasn't scarred or wounded in any way to make me feel uncomfortable by his appearance, but his eyes and his mouth. There was a weird glow, a golden orange glow. It filled both his eyeballs and his mouth, his teeth shining through in a bright yellow light. It glowed in the dark and cast a light across us, on the stairs, the floor, on me, and I could see his smirk on his grey-paned face. That's when I snapped. It wasn't human, and I had to get away from here. I broke through the invisible bonds and threw myself up the stairs, running up quickly as my untied shoes slammed against the wooden floor. I fled to my room without any second thought. Hopefully, my roommate that I had been ignoring for so many weeks would hear me and call the police. I closed the door after me and locked it, my stumbling feet bringing me across the floor and into the desk, knocking my precious family doll onto the floor. The porcelain broke and I gasped in panic, trying to recollect myself and my thoughts. There was no more noise after I had slammed the door to my room. No roommate coming after me. No weird glowing man in the stairwell. Just me and my broken doll laying on the floor. I tried to scream or cry, call for any help at all.
When I see him,
It wasn't real.
I just can't think anything
I had
other than
become
piss
too
yellow.
crazy, insane. After spending so many months just being alone, this is what had happened. I was laying on the floor, broken and shattered to pieces. I didn't know what to
Time to
believe
cheat
anymore.
again.
I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor, pacing back and forth by crawling as best as I could. The cigarette from before now just sat like a needle in my throat. I was thirsty, but I couldn't move out to the kitchen to drink anything. Maybe he was there, still waiting for me to come out. But I wasn't moving out of my spot. I never did. After an hour of complete silence in the room, I began to calm down and I stood up to try to recollect myself.
Alright, I'll get one.
There was still that feeling of being watched, and I knew that feeling all too well. The feeling of being paranoid and lonely all came down to this, a breakdown. Once I remembered the doll being broken, I immediately started to try to patch it together. It was like the only thing I could focus on. My best friend.
Oh my god, I spawned a baby.
I managed
There's
to find
some
a
foxes
needle
out
and
here.
thread
Happy?
in my room and some glue to get the doll back to its former glory, but it wasn't easy. No matter how hard I tried, the doll would just fall apart again. It became an endless attempt of nothing. I tried again and again, but it would just fall into pieces. My only friend. I became so tired from the sudden panicking and the fixing of the doll. I just passed out on my bed, curled up together in a ball with the blanket over my head, somehow imagining that no monster under the bed could reach me now. All I wanted was to sleep. I didn't know he would come back.
So you're telling me I fill out this 2-minute quiz one time and I can get all of this shipped to me monthly?
Stupid.
And this beauty quiz asks about my
Sleep. I didn't know he would come back. This time was different, however. This time, I welcomed it. I was tired of running all the time, and I would rather die in my sleep than face another day of being lonely again. And now with my only friend broken, what was I supposed to do? It approached me this time. It was like I was sleeping, but I could still control my body, like a lucid dream. I wouldn't dare to step into another day. Tonight, it would end, just like I had been afraid it would. But I didn't care anymore, didn't bother. I just wanted to have a long sleep and never wake up again, never face the loneliness again.
Girl, get therapy!
He came back to me, with his hands guiding me up from my bed. He wrapped his mind around mine as I tried to see. But the only thing I could see was his grey hands holding mine tight. But suddenly there was a sensation I wasn't sure I could feel, of floating.
I'm
Like
pretty
the
sure it's a
puppets,
woman,
He cut 2 openings into
and
my
he's
wrist,
just reading it.
but it wasn't a cross.
I
More
think
like
it's a woman.
from the center of
Not
my
puppeteer,
arms
but the person that
down.
he was
reached
telling the
for
story's
something.
point of view from. I think it's a woman, because she was so scared. One, she was so scared when there was just a random guy there. Like, dudes, they don't normally get scared whenever there's just a random guy, to be fair. And then also, she's a female roommate and stuff. It kind of just makes sense for her to be a woman. But I can just use they, them pronouns or something.
Muscles. Something to peel out and hang on to. The bad thing was, I allowed him to do it.
Ew.
My struggle had become too much to bear with, and with the pieces of muscle hanging out from the cuts, he started to pull at them. He pulled at them like he wanted to control my body and arms. How it all came together in reaction to my nerve system and skeleton. He knew how it worked. Yet there was no pain that filled my heart or body. Just another piece of my mind staying at ease again. It was a wonderful feeling. It was like nothing else mattered. And as he continued to cut me open, he began to sing. They call me the puppeteer. My fingers are thin and my hands are stained with my tears. For the puppets I steer, with my strings and my dreams. It took me only a minute to lose every sense of my touch. My nerve system had been crushed under the hand of this man. This thing, breaking every bone in my body. I could feel him twisting my ribs and twisting my hip bones, all for it to make it easier for him to turn me into what he saw me fitting to be. It was like the long pieces of torn muscle were strings, controlling my limbs and my head flailing from side to side. All I could see was his smile, so I smiled back. They call me the puppeteer, my body dark and my eyes hunger of gold. In my eyes no one is alone, and with my strings and dreams, you shall be my friend too. The last thing I could feel was his hand tugging around my neck. Then, snap! At first I was afraid to see death approaching me this way. I had never thought of it this way. I would have said no and refused if I could have decided it on my own, but I didn't. I said yes. With a broken neck, death was just half a second away. Then there was nothing but a golden smile and his warm hands holding my strings as my body fell. Early the other morning, my roommate found me, dead. I had committed suicide by hanging myself off the ceiling fan, assuring my death. I had jumped from the bed. Beside me was that doll, the broken porcelain doll with the red dress and lovely blonde hair. You may be wondering how I'm writing this to you now, or how I found a way to contact you. I found it necessary to write down my story before I passed it on. This is my legacy. This is what I'm leaving behind. I couldn't stand the loneliness anymore. I couldn't stand facing the problems on my own. It took so long. Too long. Dear Mum and Dad, I'm sorry.
And that's the end of the Puppeteer story. Any comments? Or do we continue on the list? Oh. You sent me a picture of the man I already know. He does look cool, but all I can think is of that yellow and how ugly it is. Especially to have it in his mouth. That looks like the color you pee out. Anyway.
Save money and make money on Depop. Buy your favorite brands secondhand for cheaper than retail. When you're done, sell them with no selling fees, and use the cash to buy something you love. Buy, sell.
Nope. Nope. No.
My family causes me. My father and stepmother always go at each other like a couple of lions fighting over a piece of meat. There is no peace, and sometimes I wish I could just crawl into a hole and never come out again. I desperately pray to God that every day would get a little better, but it never does. Nothing ever gets better. The only thing I look forward to anymore is sleep.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say which creepypasta story this is. This is, Candy Pop.
The constant oppression and neglect from my stepmother only increases with every passing day. Sometimes I can't help but lie in bed and wonder if my family or friends would even miss me if I went away. Would people cry?
How hard is it for people to get therapy in these?
Just move on. The only love I remember.
I would not survive a horror movie. I would be like, oh my god, he looks sick. My friend. What? No, run. You laughs. I would cackle and run. To be honest, like, here's a true story that happened to me. Okay? We were in a horror movie scene, pretty much, in real life. Okay? We went to this lake. We went to a lake, and it was also, like, this huge nature preserve. And, me and a bunch of kids, we went out because we had to do, like, a treasure hunt thing. We had to bring back certain leaves and yada yada and some rocks for some points. It was kind of dumb. But we were walking, and this girl was like, did you see that? And I was like, see what? And then she was like, it looked like a human with horns. Should we go check it out? Dude, I ran so fast and so quick and so out of my own mind that by the time I stopped, I had 3 cuts on my leg because I was not, if something was in my way, I was gone. And the reason I ran so quick is because I instantly thought, oh shit, there is a Wendigo in these woods, I'm out. That was my first thought, because she said, like, because later she described it as a tall, stretched out man, and I'm just like, nope. My first thought was Wendigo. Not a demon, a Wendigo. And the reason I thought Wendigo is because it's part of Native American folklore. Is because my grandma, she used to talk about Wendigos a lot. I don't know how I didn't piece together that I was Native sooner. But a Wendigo is a witch. It's a Native American witch thing. You can find a video. A video will explain it better than I can. Wendigos are not good creatures. Hold on, give me 1 second. Hello? Am I audible? I didn't realize my stuff got unplugged. Hello? Aw, crap. I've lost my children. Remember me. Oh, okay, there you are. Wendigos are not people anymore. They were people, but like some witch something. I think it's a witch's curse or a witch, like they turn into these deer-like creatures. I don't remember exactly. Like I said, it was years ago when my grandma used to talk about this stuff. Cause she doesn't think that she's native enough to talk about this stuff. I don't know how to explain it other than that. But she doesn't, and she's like 90% native, so it doesn't make any sense, but you know. But yeah, Wendigos are like very not good creatures. Anyway.
Healing was from my father, but lately things have taken a turn for the worse. The fights have gotten more violent, and there were days I would find him crying, praying for a miracle to happen.
They're mostly bad spirits. They eat people. I don't think there are any good Wendigos now that I think about it. They just eat people. I know that much. I'll have to find like a video explaining Wendigos. For being one of the family members who quote from my aunt got a lot of the Native American gene, I don't know a lot. But yeah, whenever that happened, I was out. Anyway, back to the story after this ad.
I would find him crying, praying for a miracle to happen. As it grew dark out, I realized I'd been sitting in my room listening to them for several hours. I couldn't hear them arguing anymore. The damned grating noises of the clock above me only contributed to my frustration. That eerie silence heightened my anxiety until I couldn't take any more. I got to the door, and before I could get to the doorknob, it swung open. It was my dad, beaten, broke.
You most likely can't actually see them. Cause they're huge. And anybody would be able to see them. And they usually stalk their prey.
And bruised. I gazed up at his tired face as I slowly walked towards him. Then and there, I decided enough was enough, and I lost all rational thought as I grabbed his hand. I gathered my strength and pushed my way past my stepmother. The rage plastered on her face made me panic as I tugged my father to his car. I got him into the passenger's seat and scooted over to the driver's side. I frantically locked the doors as I looked for my father's keys. I could hear my stepmother growl words as she cursed out my name. "Alexa!" she yelled out in a hoarse voice. My only thought was to get my father away from here as fast as I could. I panicked as I struggled to find the keys in the little light I had. A sudden loud bang on the driver's side window sent me into a state of shock as my eyes snapped back to it. I screamed in terror as my stepmother slammed the baseball bat against the window again. It must have been enough to finally snap my father out of his haze. He suddenly grabbed me and shoved me off the seat. He had grabbed his keys from the glove compartment and started the car before speeding off, leaving a trail of smoke and skid marks behind us.
Apparently that's her
My panic
that's apparently
only
her name.
heightened as we flew down the road. I pleaded with him to slow down, but he only sped up more. I could feel the car starting to spin out of control. The sudden thrashing shook us both violently before I heard glass shattering. The seatbelt that had kept me secured broke.
Who would name their kid Alexa? I have no idea. This was probably before the whole Alexa thing. But that's her name.
And suddenly the world went black. I felt so isolated. The cold, hard ground beneath me sent goosebumps along my skin as my eyes snapped open. I was gripped with a sudden feeling of pain as I sat up. My head was pounding from the hard landing.
I have a new follower.
I
Thank
tried
you.
to steady myself and realized that all I could hear was the hollow sound of the car alarm. There wasn't any other noise. Even the cool breeze that touched my skin was silent. I slowly brought myself to my feet as I looked around. Something was wrong. "Dad?" I called out, but there was no answer. I hollered out again. Still no answer. I started to scream over and over again to such an extent that my throat began to hurt, only to hear silence.
Jesus!
1 year since the Supreme Court issued its
Only to hear silence. had to stop before I not only lose my father, but my voice as well. I was worn out, and I couldn't stop rubbing my eyes. The more I
Yep,
did,
it is
the
200.
more the light around me started to fade into darkness. I felt uneasy as I opened my eyes. I was suddenly blinded by a single spotlight, and everything around me seemed to fade away. I could hear a faint jingling sound echo around me,
Dad!
was followed by laughter. I could feel my anxiety welling up again as I called out, hoping it was my father. Hello? Dad? I waited several minutes, but there was no reply. It only seemed to confirm my worst fear. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end as an overwhelming presence seemed to appear behind me. I turned around quickly, and there, in colours of
Yeah,
blue,
we can do Toby next.
magenta, and teal, stood a towering jester. The jester carried a mischievous, lazy demeanour. He looked bored and quickly took notice that I was standing there. He didn't say a word. The only sound was the faint jingling of the bell
Oh my
that was
god.
tied to the ends of his blue hair. I couldn't break my gaze away from
I am
him.
not a jester.
His flamboyant,
I'm a clown.
vibrant features brought out so much life and made him stand out that much more. The jester came closer to me with a grin that I wasn't sure I could trust. I didn't understand where he came from or how I came to be in his dark oblivion. Without a word, he started to do tricks that would awe anyone.
They are not actually the same. There are some differences. Jesters are usually quiet and don't really talk and try to use physical. That's the other way around. Clowns use physical gags, while jesters usually poke fun and make fun of people. That's the big difference. While clowns, they make jokes, puns, and do all that crazy shenanigans stuff like stuffing into a car. While jesters are just roasting you. You learn something new every day.
One of which made a purple balloon with a smiley face mystically appear in his hand. He looked to me again with a smile as he offered it to me. I didn't take it from him. I didn't know where he came from, much less what he was. I drew back slightly as my thoughts.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought so. Yeah. I was right.
Thoughts returned to my father. I had to find him. I didn't have time for this. I turned quickly to move away, but he was there in front of me again. He looked disappointed and shook his head as he offered me the purple balloon again. I couldn't stand the eerie silence that was lingering between us. "Who are you?" I asked, after gathering my courage. The jester still didn't say anything, but pulled out a deck of cards. I asked him again, and this time he pulled out a card with a letter on it. It started to dance around him, and with every following question, he would pull out another card. I glared at the cards and spelled out the name he presented to me. Candy Pop? I asked. The only response he gave me was a wide
It does.
grin. I didn't know why, but each time he smirked, it sent chills down my spine. I could feel something was wrong, even if I didn't know what it was. He started doing tricks again, and this time he made the big purple balloon disappear. I watched as he made a blue lollipop appear, then another and another, until he held 3 of them. I wasn't sure what to say or do, so I only watched in silence. He took my hand and placed the lollipops in my palm and closed his hand around mine. Once again, he made that same purple balloon reappear and backed away slightly. He crouched with his back to me, and all I could hear was the sound of plastic being stretched quite a bit. When he turned around, he held a flower-shaped balloon. Candy Pop's smile was sweet and kind as he offered me the balloon again. I wasn't sure why he was so persistent for me to take a balloon. Maybe he was really just trying to befriend me. After a moment, I finally decided to accept the balloon. I examined it before gazing up at Candy Pop. His expression had changed.
Candy Pop is a violent creature who is more than he/they appears something playful, sometimes evil, and sometimes even sad. You will never Did you just look up what Candy Pop was? Wow. You're no fun. Fine, I'll find Toby. Here's Toby's 30-minute long.
Step.
30-minute long story.
This video may contain offensive language and be frightening to some viewers. Viewer discretion is recommended. The long road home seemed to go on and on. The road continued to outstretch in front of the vehicle endlessly. The light that shone through the branches of the tall green trees danced across the windows in random patterns, every once in a while obnoxiously shining in your eyes. The surrounding was full of deep green trees forming a forest around the road. The only sound was the sound of the car's engine as it travelled down the path. It was peaceful and let off a serene feeling. Although the ride seemed like a nice one, it lacked every form of nice for both passengers. The middle-aged woman behind the steering wheel had neat short brown hair that fit her complexion quite well. She wore a green V-neck t-shirt and a pair of blue jeans. Diamond stud earrings decorated each of her ears, which partially showed from behind her haircut. She had deep green eyes, which were brought out by her shirt, and the lighting seemed to make them more noticeable. There wasn't much significant about her appearance. She just looked like any average mother that you would see on TV shows and such. But one thing for sure made her different from those average mothers, and that was the dark bags under her eyes. Her facial expression was gloomy and sad, although she genuinely looked like someone who smiled a lot. She would sniff every once in a while and occasionally glance back in the rearview mirror to look back at her son in the back seat, who was hunched over partially, his arms held tight around his chest, and his head
Remember,
pressed
kids,
against the gold
don't run
window.
with scissors.
The boy lacked any normal appearance. Anyone could blandly see that something was wrong with him. His messy brown hair went in every which way, and his pale, almost grey skin was brought out by the luminescent lighting. His eyes were dark, unlike his mother's, and he wore a light t-shirt and scrub pants that had been provided to him by the hospital. The clothes he had worn before were so shredded and blood-stained that they weren't wearable anymore. The right side of his face bared a few cuts along with his split eyebrow. His right arm was bandaged up all the way to his shoulder, which had been shredded when his right side had hit the shattered glass. His injuries appeared to be painful, when really he couldn't feel
Kiddo, I
anything.
can't. What
He
did you
never
just send me?
That was one of the glories about being him. One of the many challenges he had to face growing up was growing up with the rare disease that caused him to be completely numb towards pain. Never before had he felt himself get hurt. He could have
If you want me to check that link out, you gotta send it on Discord, because I can't
That and another major
use links that are
disorder
sent in my
he
thing.
faced was the one that deemed him many insulting nicknames. In the short
Stop
time
it!
he attended grade school, before he was moved
You're
to
grounded!
schooling, was his Tourette syndrome, which caused him to tick and
Go sit in the
twitch
corner!
in ways he couldn't control. He would crack his neck uncontrollably and twitch every once in a while. The kids would tease him and call him Ticky Toby and mock him with exaggerated twitching and laughing.
You keep calling me a communist!
Schooling. It was too hard for him to be in a common learning environment with seemingly every kid poking or more like stabbing fun at him. Toby stared blankly out the window. His face was empty of any depictable emotion, and every few minutes his shoulder, arm or foot would twitch. Every bump that the car tires hit made his stomach turn. Toby Rogers was the boy's name, and the last time Toby
My
remembered
stepmom heard this story and asked if I have
crashed.
Tourette's or if it's just my
That's all he
ADHD.
thought about, unconsciously replaying everything he had remembered before he blacked
It was
out,
a joke, but still.
over and over again. Toby had been the lucky one, when his sister hadn't been so lucky. When the thought of his older sister came, he couldn't help but let his eyes begin to tear up. The horrible memories replayed in his mind. Her screaming that had been cut off when the front of the car was smashed. It all went blank for a moment before Toby opened his eyes to see his sister's body. Her forehead pierced with glass shards, her hips and legs were crushed under the force of the steering wheel. Her torso pushed in from the late inflated airbag. This was the last thing he had seen of his dear older sister. The road home continued on for what seemed like forever. It took so long to get home due to his mother wanting to avoid passing the site of the crash. When the surrounding gave into a familiar neighbourhood, they had both been more than ready to get out of the car and step back into their own
Let me
home.
see what you have sent me. Let me pause this video so I can see. My fingers hurt. Jesus. Why?
Older neighbourhood with quaint little houses all next to each other. The car drove in front of a little blue house with white window panes. They both quickly noticed the old vehicle that was parked in front of the house and the familiar figure who stood out in the driveway. Toby felt automatic anger and frustration take over him at the the sight of his father who wasn't there. His mother pulled up the car into the driveway beside him before turning off the engine and preparing to step out and face her husband. Why is he here? Toby said quietly as he looked back at his mother.
You'll find out.
To open the car door. He's your father, Toby.
Well, I mean, I don't remember, actually. It's been forever. But I know in one story he does. So, we're just gonna find out together if he dies in this one. There's like 7 different Toby stories, so
Toby. He's here because he wants to
this is
see
just the
you.
most popular one.
His mother responded in a monotone voice, trying to sound less shaky. Yet he couldn't have driven up to the hospital to see Lyra before she died. Toby narrowed his eyes out the window. He was drunk that night, honey. He couldn't drive. Yeah, when is he not? Toby pushed open the door before his mother and stumbled out onto the driveway, where he met his father's gaze before looking down at his feet with a stern expression. His mother stepped out behind him and met her husband's eyes before walking around to the car. His father opened up his arms, expecting a hug from his wife, but she walked past him and put her arm around Toby's shoulder and influenced him to begin walking inside. Connie, her husband began to say under a raspy voice. What? No welcome home hug, huh? She ignored her husband's obnoxious words and walked past him with her son under her arm. Hey, he's 16, he can walk himself. His father began to follow them in. He's 17. Connie glared back at him before opening the door to the house and stepping inside.
Vex,
Toby,
I
why don't we go
will
in your room so you can rest,
put
okay?
you on timeout.
I'll come get
Stop
you
it.
when dinner is ready. Nah, I'm 16, I can walk myself, Toby said sarcastically and glared back at his father before stumbling up the small staircase and turning into his room, where he slammed the door violently. His little room didn't have much in it, just a small bed, a dresser,
Thank you.
a window, and his walls had a few framed pictures of his family.
I'm fine with you chatting, just no ooh-oohs.
Before his father became an alcoholic and acted violently towards the rest of his family, Toby remembered when he was arguing with his mother, and he grabbed her by the hair and shoved her to the floor. And when Lyra tried to break it up, he pushed her, and she hit her back on the corner of the kitchen counter. Toby could never forgive him for what he did to his mother and his sister. Never. Toby didn't care how much his father beat him down. He couldn't feel it anyway. What he did care about was how he intentionally hurt the only 2 people he cared about. And when he was waiting in the hospital, where his sister took her last few breaths, the only person who didn't rush there was his dad. Toby stood by the window and looked out onto the street. He could have sworn he saw things out of the corner of his eye, but quickly blamed it on the medication he had been put on. When dinner time had come around and his mother called up to him, Toby came down the stairs and hesitantly sat down at the table across from his father and in between his mother.
Oh my
and
God.
chair. It was quiet as his parents picked at their food, but Toby refused to eat. Instead, he just watched his dad with a blank stare. His mother caught on to his stare towards his father and elbowed him slightly.
Ha, I can't
So
see that.
her slightly and looked down at his uneaten food, in which he didn't touch. Toby lay in bed. He pulled his covers over his head and stared at the window. He was
Oh my God, I thought that was my bird.
There was no way to fall asleep. He couldn't. There was too much to think about. He had been debating on whether or not to follow his mother's instructions and forgive his father, or to continue holding a grudge with his boiling hatred. He heard his door creak open, and his mother padded into the room and sat on.
Genuine question. If I wrote out Morty's story, which is my creepypasta OC, would you want to hear that for tomorrow's live? During tomorrow's live. I have Morty, I have Bella, and a few others, but you know. Those are my main 2. Okay, I will have to do that.
The bed next to him. She reached over and rubbed his back, which had been turned to her. I know it's hard, Toby. Trust me, I understand. But I promise you, it will get better, she said softly. When is he going to leave? Toby. Softly. When is he going to leave? Toby said with an innocent tone in his shaky voice. Connie let her gaze fall into her
Yep,
feet.
Adam.
I don't know, honey. He's staying as far as I know, she replied. Toby didn't respond. He just continued to look forward at the wall, holding his damaged arm near his chest. After a few minutes of silence, his mother sighed, before she leaned over to kiss his cheek, and stood up and walked out of the room. Good night, she said as she closed the door. The hours passed.
Get food then!
Toby couldn't quit tossing and turning.
Do you want me to pause
Every
the
time he let his
creepypasta while you go
imagination
make
take
you
over,
food?
He heard the screeching of tires, the screaming of his sister, and he would uncontrollably jerk in bed. He threw off his covers laying on his back, and pulled his pillow over his face and cried into it. He could feel his chest rise and fall as he let out each shaky breath as he cried. He could hear his own pitiful weeping. He would have been screaming and crying if he didn't press the pillow over his face. After a few seconds, he threw the pillow off his face as well and sat up, hunched over, holding his head and breathing roughly, tears streaming from his eyes. He couldn't help but cry. He tried to keep it in, but he couldn't help but whine and whimper as he sat there shaking. He inhaled before he stood up and walked around his bed to the window and peered out, taking deep breaths, trying to calm down. He rubbed his eyes and looked out at the group of tall pine trees across the street.
Pours it. I'll be right back. I also have to go do something, actually. I've been waiting for food to cool down so I can put it up. So I'll be right back. I gotta go do that. And I need something to drink. So see you when I get back, or when you get back, whichever one comes first. Whoa, calm down there, kid. I just left to get put my food up. Put leftovers up. And make me some food, because I'm hungry. So. I'm back, don't worry. Here's your Tiki Toby.
He stopped suddenly, and his gaze slowly centered on something standing under the streetlight. He heard ringing in his ears, and he couldn't look away.
Banana!
The figure stood beside the streetlight, about 2 feet shorter than it, long arms draped at its sides as it stared up at him with non-existing eyes. The figure had no features whatsoever, no eyes, no mouth, no nose, yet it held Toby's hypnotized stare.
I hate to be this person where I'm eating on a live, but like I can't not eat when my body tells me to, because if I don't eat when my body tells me to eat, I pass out.
The next morning, Toby woke in his bed. He felt different.
So I'm sorry
He wasn't
if anybody here has problems
when he consciously
and
woke
hears
up,
me
he
chewing.
felt like he had been lying there, awake for hours. He had no thoughts flowing through his mind. He sat up slowly and stumbled over to the wall. But when he stood up, he automatically felt
Okay.
He stumbled to the doorway and walked down the stairs. His parents were sitting at the table. His father was in tune with a small TV that sat on the countertop, and his mother was reading
I
the
know.
newspaper. She quickly looked over when she felt Toby's presence looming behind her. Well, good morning, sleepyhead. You've been sleeping forever. She greeted him with a hesitant smile. Toby slowly looked over at the clock and noticed it was 12:30 p.m. I made you breakfast, but it got cold. I was going to wake you up, but I felt you needed sleep. Her expression fell from happy to worried as her son resisted responding to her. Are you all right? Toby stumbled over and sat by his father. He felt as if he was on idle and had no control over his actions. He was seeing everything he did, but it didn't seem to register in his brain properly. He reached out to his father's arm, but his hand ended up getting slapped. His father turned to him abruptly and pushed his chair over with his foot. Don't touch me, boy, he yelled. His mother stood up. All right, knock it off. That is the last thing we need. His mother stood up. All right, knock it off. That is the last thing we need. The days went by and things continued on as they were. Connie spent most of her time cleaning up the house, and her rude husband spent most of his time ordering her around. It was just how it used to be before the crash.
My cat's
Toby
doing
never really
parkour.
left his room. He would sit there by his bed and tremble. His mind would wander, but his thoughts changed too fast to be remembered. He would pace around his small room like a caged animal, or stare out the window. The unhealthy cycle continued. Connie continued to be pushed around by her husband, being way too submissive to him, and Toby remained in his room. Before he could think twice, he would begin to chew on his hands, tearing the flesh from his fingers. He would gnaw at his hands until they bled. When his mother walked in on him while he was doing so, she reacted horribly. She rushed him downstairs and grabbed the first aid kit, wrapping his hands in bandages. She
Wow.
demanded that he wouldn't leave her side from then. He isolated himself so much that he began to hate me.
I used to do the same thing Toby did, where he would rip his knuckles and stuff open. I did the same thing for a long time. I actually had kids that would call me Tiki Toby. And I was fine with it. Anyway.
Around others, his memory grew glitchy as well. He'd start missing memory for minutes, hours, days, and so on. He would begin talking nonsense about things completely unrelated to conversations he would have. He'd go off about...
It was one of my anxiety things. I don't know why it was specifically my knuckles, but I would only chew on them. I had terrible anxiety, like really bad, and I guess that was my reaction and my way to help myself through it was to just rip my knuckles open with my teeth. It was so bad and unhealthy. Yeah, I'm good now. I stopped doing that a few years ago. I must note though, if you ever start chewing on your knuckles, your fingers from your anxiety, start trying to figure out a way to stop yourself. Because me, I have scars on my hands to this day on my knuckles. It's not healthy. It's not good. Obviously. So don't do it. Anyway.
Seeing things, sharks in the sink as he washed the dishes, hearing crickets in his pillows, and seeing ghosts outside his bedroom window. All the nonsense landed him in a counsellor's office. His mother grew too anxious about his mental health. She decided it would be good for him to talk to a professional about what he was feeling. Connie walked Toby into the building, holding his hand and guiding him in. She walked him up to the front desk and began talking to the lady who sat
Garfield!
Mrs. Rogers?
Sorry.
The lady asked. Yes, that's me, Connie nodded. We're here to see Dr. Oliver. I'm here with Toby Rogers.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, right this way. The lady stood up and led them down a long hallway. Toby looked at the framed artwork down the halls and tuned into the sound of the lady's high heels on the hardwood floor. She opened the door to a room with a table and 2 chairs. If we can get him to sit in here for a few minutes, I'll get the doctor. She smiled and held the door open. Toby stumbled into the room and sat down at the table. He looked over at his mother and the lady before the door slowly shut behind them. He looked around the room before he held up his tightly bandaged hands and began to bite at them in an attempt to unwrap his hands, but was interrupted as the door swung open and a young woman in a black and white spotted dress stepped in. She had light blonde hair and was holding a clipboard and a pen. Toby? She asked with a smile. Toby looked up at her and nodded. Nice to meet you, Toby. My name is Dr. Oliver. She put her hand out for him to shake, but hesitantly pulled away when she noticed his bandaged hands. Oh. She smiled nervously before clearing her throat and sitting in the chair across the table from him. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Try and answer them as honestly as possible, okay? She placed her clipboard down on the table. Toby nodded slowly and held his restrained hands in his lap. How old are you, Toby? 17. He responded quietly. She wrote that down on the paper that was clipped to the clipboard. What is your full name? Toby Erin Rogers. What is your birthday? April 28th. Who is your immediate family? Toby paused for a minute before answering her question. My mum, my dad, and... He stopped. My sister. I heard about your sister, dear. I'm really sorry. Her expression faded into a sad, pity-filled look. Toby nodded. Do you remember anything from the crash, Toby? Toby looked away from her. His mind went blank. He looked down at his lap, and in the surrounding he heard a faint ringing sound. His eyes widened, and he froze in his place. Toby? The counsellor asked. Toby, are you listening? Toby felt a shiver go down his spine until he froze once again and slowly looked over out the little window through the door where he saw it. A dark, featureless figure peering in at him. He stared, eyes widening, the ringing growing louder and louder until suddenly the loud voice of the counsellor broke his trance. Toby! She yelled. Toby jumped and fell sideways out of his chair and backed up into the corner. Dr. Oliver stood up, holding her clipboard to her chest, a surprised look in her eyes. Toby met her eyes again, his breath hitching as he twitched. That night, Toby lay in bed, his eyes dazed as he stared straight up at his ceiling. He could feel himself begin to doze off when he heard the scattering of footsteps down his hallway. He sat up and looked towards the doorway, his door wide open. There was no light. Everything was lit by the luminescent blue glow of the moon through his window, leaving a cold light. He stood up and slowly made his way towards the doorway, when suddenly the door, which was previously wide open, slammed in his face. He gasped and fell back. He was out of breath when he hit the ground, and he began breathing heavily, his eyes wide open. He waited for a few seconds before getting back up on his feet. He reached out and grasped the cold door handle with his bandaged hand and creaked it open. He looked out into the dark hallway and tiptoed out of his room. The window at the end of the hallway lit up the darkness with blue moonlight as he padded his way down. He could hear footsteps rustling around him and faint giggling mixed with the pitter-patter of small feet. It sounded like a child had run in front of him, giggling and laughing in the dark. The hallway...
I'm not negotiating.
Oh no, I accidentally changed it when I hiccuped.
And Toby remained in his room. Before he could think twice, he would begin to chew on his hands, tearing the flesh from his... Counselor asked. Toby, are you listening? Toby felt a shiver go down his spine until he
I'm sorry, I
froze
didn't mean
once
to do that, I
again
swear.
and slowly looked over, out the little window through the door, where he saw it. A dark, featureless figure peering in at him. He stared, eyes widening, the ringing growing louder and louder until suddenly the loud voice of the counselor broke his trance. Toby! She yelled. Toby jumped and fell sideways out of his chair and backed up into the corner. Dr. Oliver stood up, holding her clipboard to her chest, a surprised look in her eyes. Toby met her eyes again, his breath hitching as he twitched. That night, Toby lay in bed, his eyes dazed as he stared straight up at his ceiling. He could feel himself begin to doze off when he heard the scattering of footsteps down his hallway. He sat up and looked towards the doorway, his door wide open. There was no light. Everything was lit by the luminescent blue glow of the moon through his window, leaving a cold lighting. He stood up and slowly made his way towards the doorway, when suddenly the door, which was previously wide open, slammed in his face. He gasped and fell back. He was out of breath when he hit the ground, and he began breathing heavily, his eyes wide open. He waited for a few seconds before getting back up on his feet. He reached out and grasped the cold door handle with his bandaged hand and creaked it open. He looked out into the dark hallway and tiptoed out of his room. The window at the
I'm
end
sorry
of the
for what's about to
hallway
happen.
lit up the darkness with blue moonlight as he padded his way
so
down.
sorry.
He could hear footsteps rustling around him and faint giggling mixed with the pitter-patter of small feet. It sounded like a child had run in front of him, giggling and laughing in the dark. The hallway was a lot longer than he had remembered. It seemed endless, like the ride home from the hospital. He
I'm
heard
so
a door
dumb.
creak
These
in
aren't
front of
different
him.
plants. Those are the same
Mom?
mushrooms, just different
He
colors.
called out in a shaky voice. Suddenly a door slammed behind him and he jumped and turned around. He heard a long, eerie groan from behind him that seemed to croak right in his ear. He turned around as fast as he could, and suddenly he was face to face with none other than his dead sister. Her eyes were clouded white, her skin pale, and the right side of her jaw only dangling on by tissue and muscle. Glass protruding from her her forehead, black blood leaking down her face.
I don't think
Her
her girl
blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, as it always was, wearing her grey t-shirt and athlete shorts, which were dirty and spotted with blood. Her legs were bent in ways which they shouldn't be. She stood emitting a long croaking noise, only an inch away from Toby's face. Toby yelped and fell back. Ah! He started to crawl backwards away from her, not able to break eye contact he held with her blank, dead eyes. He dragged himself backwards until he backed up into something. He stopped for a second. Everything was dead silent, except for his heavy breathing and crying. He slowly looked up to meet the blank face of a tall, dark figure that stood over him. Behind the tall, dark mass were rows of children, looking to range from 3 to 10 years, their eyes completely black, and dark blood leaked from their eye sockets. He screamed and stood up as fast as he could, only to be tripped by dark black tendrils that wrapped around his ankle. He fell straight onto his stomach and got the wind knocked out of his chest. He tried to scream out, but he couldn't make a sound. He wheezed out.
Oh crap, I don't remember. Uh-oh. I don't remember. Uh-oh. I think it's Sarah. I'm pretty sure it's Sarah. Anyway.
It all went black. Toby woke up with a start. He screamed out and sat up as fast as he could, completely short of breath. He wheezed out and felt his chest with his bandaged hands. It was just a dream. Just a dream.
Hey,
He laid back down in his bed and rolled over on his side. It felt like a giant weight had been lifted off his chest as he took in deep breaths. He stood up and padded over to his window. He saw nothing. Nobody was out there. No ghosts, no figures, nothing. He heard the rustling and coughing of his father out the doorway. His door was closed. He walked over and opened it, looking out into the hallway once again. He padded down the hallway and into the kitchen, where he found his dad standing and having a smoke in their living room. Toby waited a second and watched him from around the corner before a burning feeling started deep in his chest. Deep, boiling anger took over him. He heard the little imaginary voices in his head. Do it. Do it. Do it, they chanted. He turned away and held his arms. He felt like he actually had control over himself, unlike he did for the past few weeks since he got home from the hospital. He actually had complete thoughts, where just moments before they were clouded by the chanting of the little voices in his head. Kill him. He wasn't there.
Lyra,
He wasn't there.
thank you.
Kill him. Kill him. They continued on. Toby trembled. No, he wasn't gonna do it. What? Was he going crazy? No. He won't kill anyone. He can't. He hated his father, but he wasn't gonna kill him. That was it. The last thought he had before he fell into an idle state once again. The influence of the voices in his head was too much. He began to silently walk up behind his father. He reached over the counter to the knife holder in the kitchen and pulled out the largest knife that had been resting in a case. He gripped it in his hand. He felt a sensation take over his chest. He let out a snicker. He began laughing so hard he had to gasp for breath. His father turned around abruptly before he felt a brute force shove him to the floor. He grunted as the air was knocked out of him. What? He looked up at the boy
Kill
who
him.
stood over him, grasping the kitchen knife in his hand. Toby, what are you doing? He went to sit up and put his arms out in front of him in self-defense. But before he knew it, Toby was on top of him. He went to grab at his neck, but his father reached out and blocked his hand by grabbing onto his wrist. Stop! Get off me, you little fucker! He yelled, and with his other hand threw an off-center punch towards Toby's shoulder, but he didn't stop. The look in Toby's eyes was not sane. It looked as if a demon had taken control over him. He yelled back and went to stab the knife into his father's chest, but he blocked him and grabbed onto his wrist once again. He went to shove him back, but Toby kicked out with his feet in front of him and landed a hard blow straight to his face. His father recoiled and pulled his arms away to cuff his face, but Toby got back up and drove the knife straight into his shoulder. His father let out a loud cry and went to pull the knife out, but before he could, Toby threw his fist straight into his face. He began to pound his fists into his head, laughing and wheezing. He cracked his neck and grabbed the knife and ripped it out of his shoulder. He drove it deep into his dad's chest and repeatedly stabbed into his torso, blood spilling out and getting splattered everywhere. He didn't stop until his father's body went still. He threw the knife over to the side and leaned over his body, coughing and panting. He stared at his smashed-in face and sat there twitching, until a loud scream broke the silence. He looked over to see his mother standing a few feet away, covering her mouth, tears running down her face. Toby, why did you do that? She cried. Why? Toby stood up and began to back away from his father's bloody corpse. He began to back out of the kitchen. He looked down at the blood-soaked bandages on his hands and looked up at his
Good job,
mother
Toby.
one last time before he turned and ran out the house. He ran into the garage and slammed his hand against the control panel on the wall, opening the garage door. Before he ran out, he saw his father's two hatchets that had been hanging on a tool rack above a table full of jars, filled to the brim with rusty nails and screws. One hatchet was new. It had a bright orange handle and a shiny blade. The other was old, with a wooden handle and a dull blade. He grabbed both and looked down.
At the from the car crash, because that side of his face is what hit the ground. That side of his body, I mean. The car crash.
Down at the table. His eyes met a box of matches, and under the table was a red gasoline tank. He held both of the hatchets in one hand and grabbed the matches and gasoline before running out of the garage, down the driveway and up the street. As he approached the streetlight that he could see out of his own bedroom window, he heard police sirens in the distance. He turned around, and the red and blue flashing lights came rushing down the street. Toby stood for a second before he pulled open the cap to the gasoline tank and ran down the street spilling gasoline everywhere. When the tank was nearly empty, he turned to run into the trees. He poured the last bit of gasoline out and then reached into his pocket and pulled out a match. He struck it against the box and immediately dropped it. In an instant, flames burst out around him. The fire caught onto the trees and the bushes around him, and before he knew it, he was surrounded by fire. The silhouettes of police cars were visible through the flames as he backed away into the forest around him. He looked around, but his vision was blurred. His heart was pounding, and he closed his eyes for a moment. That was it. This was the end. Toby felt a hand on his shoulder. He opened his eyes and looked over to see a large white hand with bony fingers that was resting on his shoulder. He followed the arm that was attached to the hand up to a towering dark figure. It appeared to be wearing a dark black suit, and its face was completely blank. It towered over Toby's small frame and looked down on him. tendrils reached out from its back. Before Toby knew it, his vision was blurred and he was surrounded by the sound of ringing in his ears. Everything went blank. That was it. That was the end. That was how Toby Rogers died.
Oh yeah,
A
he
few
is
weeks
considered
later,
dead.
Connie sat in her sister's kitchen. Her sister Laurie sat next to her, drinking a cup of coffee. About 3 weeks ago, Connie lost her husband and her son, and a few weeks before, she lost her daughter in a car crash. Since then, she moved in with her sister. The police were keeping her busy. They had just finished cleaning up the case, and the story had been released 2 weeks ago. The focus of the world seemed to have shifted to completely new issues. Laurie switched on the TV to a news broadcast. On the TV, the news reporter began introducing the new headline. We have breaking news. Last night there has been a reported murder of 4 individuals. There are no suspects yet, but the victims were a group of middle school kids who had been out in the woods late last night. The kids had been bludgeoned and stabbed to death. The investigators have discovered a weapon at the crime scene, which appears to be an old dull-bladed hatchet, as you can see here. The picture changed to show snapshots of the weapon exactly as it was left on the crime scene. Investigators had pulled up the name of a possible suspect, Toby Rogers, a 17-year-old boy who a few weeks ago stabbed his father to death and tried to cover up his escape by setting a fire in the streets and the forest area around the neighbourhood. Although they had believed the young boy had died in the fire, investigators suspect that Toby Rogers may still be alive, due to the fact his body was never found. And suddenly,
There's the story of Tiki Toby. I'm trying to figure out what plants I haven't grown, because I've grown all the plants. Have I not? Because I grew those. I grew roses. What's this? The fuck did I just take? The fuck? Are you... Ow! I just popped my shoulder really bad. Mr. Craig. What would you like to listen to now? I don't think I grew this, did I? No, I did. I'm genuinely so confused. Cause look, it says I still have 2 plants to grow. And I'm pretty sure this can just be placed anywhere. No, okay, it can be grown. Anyway. Hold on, I have to make sure this is the right eyeless jack before I let you hear it. Because there's like 7, but this one is like my favorite, so maybe.
the rest of his companions. He had to get prescription glasses ever since.
Nope. Oh, crap! I forgot about that. I have to do that. Yep. I completely forgot about that. I'm so sorry. Sorry.
Really came on during the weekend, surprisingly. Really came on. This is the complete origin story of Eyeless Jack. If you've already seen part 1 and part 2, feel free to subscribe. Nothing really came on during the weekend, surprisingly. Nothing but paid programming and other TV shows he didn't enjoy. Sighing, the college student rose up.
Okay, here's the right one.
Making his way to the desk. This is the complete origin story of Eyeless Jack. If you've already seen part 1 and part 2, feel free to skip further into the video to see the final part. Otherwise, sit back and relax and enjoy the story. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and drop a comment.
I know I
Helps
said
out
I wouldn't
the
cheat in this,
algorithm,
but
and
like,
these videos take a long time to make, so I really appreciate all the support from you guys. Eyeless Jack Origin. Click, click, click. Jack continued pressing the button on the remote, idly watching the different channels pop up before changing again. Nothing really came on during the weekend, surprisingly. Nothing but paid programming and other TV shows he didn't enjoy. Sighing, the college student rose up from his sofa, making his way to the desk, resting against the wall next to his bed. He was already done with homework, finishing most of it in...
okay, genuine question. How old do you think the average college student is? This is very important. Well, not really, but it's important to me. Thank you. Okay, see, okay. Okay. I'm gonna get hated on. I ship Eyeless Jack and Tiki Toby. And everyone says that he is an adult in his 20s. No, he's a first-year college student. Yes, you can actually join college at any age, but come on! When are these characters ever over the age of 20? Okay, thank you.
class that day. Unlike his roommate, Jack could get his shit done fast enough to have the rest of the day to himself to do whatever. He wasn't really in the mood to play any video games, didn't really want to drive out anywhere. Swiping his black hoodie off his chair, Jack slipped into it and grabbed his dorm keys, shoving them into his pocket after closing the door behind him. A nice walk around the campus should do the trick. Fresh air usually calmed him. If not, helped him think. Lately, he'd been feeling different. He knew it wasn't his body or college itself. He didn't have any girlfriends to worry about. He just felt different without any explanation. It gave him a headache. He was thinking so hard. Jack rubbed his temples, pushing the door leading outside with his foot. A gust of wind swept across, slamming the door behind him. It was around 6 p.m. The sky was mixed with both orange and blue. The further the sky grew, the darker it got. Curfew, surprisingly, was 12 o'clock, midnight. He never really questioned it vocally, but always wondered why it was so late. Usually curfew was around 8 p.m. where he lived. Hi, Jack. The male looked up to see one of the girls in his class.
The male. Why did they have to word it like that? It makes him look like a creep. I'm sorry.
She most likely just left class, considering she still had her book bag on her shoulder. Jack half smiled and rose a hand to greet her. It was... oh, what was her name? Jenny. Jenny Smith. Hey, Jenny. Just now leaving class? Jenny smiled and nodded her head,
I know, right?
adjusting the strap. It's pretty late. What made you stay so long? The girl's smile lost its brightness for a split second before reviving. Oh, just had a study session. We have finals coming up soon, you know. Best to stay on the ball. She giggled before tucking her hair behind her ear. What are you doing out here anyway?
I'm
It's got a
cringing
storm
so bad.
tonight. Jack shrugged his shoulders before eyeing the sky, smelling the air for moisture. Yep, it would rain any second.
Wait, what? I'm confused. Why'd you just say that?
Just came out for some fresh air is all. Got done with homework in class and stuff. Didn't feel like playing any video games or watching TV, so I came out here. Jenny nodded her head every so often, showing him she was paying attention, and smiled again. Well, you got your air. I gotta go though. I'll see you later. Before Jack could reply with a goodbye, the girl...
Oh my god. Knock it off. Oh my god.
quickly dashed off past him, following the sidewalk around the side of the dorms. Jack rose a brow in curiosity, his mind zipping with questions, only to have it cut off by a drop of rain, then another, and another. Shit, he muttered, running back to the door to get back inside, not wanting to get soaked in the rain. Another slam of the door rose up behind him. Jack started running his fingers through his hair, sending water droplets everywhere, while wiping off the rain from his face and jacket. As he made his way back up to his dorm room, Jack began fishing through his pockets for his keys, whistling a random tune while he travelled up the 2 flights of stairs. Listening to his tune echo out in all directions, it was kind of creepy. Now that he thought about it, where was everyone? It was too quiet for a Friday evening. There was usually people up and about. Maybe lots of students stayed behind for tutoring. Maybe some went home for a weekend. Maybe people are already in bed or in their dorms, being very, very quiet. Jack sighed as he began unlocking the door, shoving his keys back in his pocket after the door closed behind him. Yo, Greg, you here? Nothing. No response. Just the sound of rain hitting against the windows. Guess he's studying too. That's a first. Jack made his way over to his bed, slumped down to get ready to sleep. He pulled off his hoodie, kicked his shoes off, and rolled over to face the wall, not bothering with the covers. He just wanted some sleep. Closing his eyes, Jack slowly began to doze off, the rain practically lulling him to sleep.
Not the Minecraft ad.
Lulling him to sleep. Praise Chernobog, for his blood-stained hands will bring salvation to us all. He shall bring us closer to our everlasting paradise. He is our Lord and Saviour. Praise Chernobog. Praise Chernobog. Jack let out a gut-wrenching gasp for air, waking in a cold sweat. His eyes darted from one corner to another before rising up from his spot. He panted, feeling his hands tremble from the dream he just had. Jack looked around his room, relieved that his roommate Greg was in his bed. He could tell he was fast asleep from the dreaded snoring that came out of him. He himself was surprised he could sleep through it. Slowly exhaling through his mouth, Jack rose up from his bed, staggering to the mini-fridge on the other side of the room, his mind churning questions. What kind of dream was that? Never had he experienced one so real. Grabbing a water bottle from the mini-fridge, Jack began gulping down the bottle, not caring if he woke up Greg. Letting out a cold sigh, Jack tossed the now empty bottle into the recycling bin, now making his way to the bathroom. He stopped in front of the mirror, hands gripping the sides of the sink as he eyed himself. He was pale, eyes borderlining bloodshot.
I'm sorry, I have to pause the story. I have to pee really bad. So now's your chance to go to the bathroom if you need to go to the bathroom. And then I'm gonna go to the bathroom because I'm the one that has to go. But yeah, Just wanted to say that. Or if you don't have to go, Vex, I can keep it playing. Vex? Hello? I'm gonna go pee. I'll be back. Ow, I just stabbed myself in the eye. I'm back from the bathroom. What do you mean, see you? I had to get a knot out of my hair. I'm sorry, that took me a minute. Are you here? Yeah, I had to go pee. I was talking to you for like a minute. I was like, hey, I gotta pee. I'll be back. And I was like, if you need to pee and get a drink, go do that real quick. But I don't know what happened. Either you didn't hear me or you accidentally closed me out. One of the two. Sorry. Alright, let me just... Jesus Christ!
Hello, thank you for calling Giga! Come on, Miyuki, watch where you're throwing those things!
Hell, he murmured, running his hand across his forehead to wipe away more.
Did it scare you too? I'm just gonna have fun and decorate. I don't even care anymore. Do you care if I cheat, Vex, or can I make it? I know! I have no idea why it was so loud, but it was. Do you care if I cheat and make the world look pretty? Thank you. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That should be it, right? Anyway, here. Back to the story.
I sweat. That's what I get for playing those survival horror games, he thought to himself, slightly smiling as he began brushing off the whole thing. Get it together, Jack. It was only a dream. Dreams don't come true. You've just played too much Silent Hill, is all. No big deal. Just get back to sleep. Get some
You know what? I don't
decent
like
rest. Easier said than done. That morning, Jack felt someone shake him awake. Dude, Jack, wake up, bro. You've got to see this. Jack let out a tired, irritated groan from under the covers, slowly pulling them down to see what Greg wanted. The blonde grinned and flashed a photo on his phone in his face. Guess who got laid last night? It was a picture of some topless girl on his lap, posing for the camera. She looks drunk, Jack muttered sleepily, his hand slowly rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Greg blew air out of his pursed lips, rolling his eyes as he closed his flip phone. You're just jealous. Bullshit. I'd rather have a life than get some chick pregnant at college. Touché, good sir. But screw you. I use protection. Whatever. Jack began pulling his covers back over his head, feeling the weight of his friend rise up off his bed. Good. He could get back to sleep. Dude, I had such a weird dream last night. Jack paused when his mind processed the words, weird dream, and was instantly awake. Really? Me too. What was it about? Greg shrugged his shoulders, his fingers flying across the numbers on his cell phone, forming a text to his girlfriend. I had a dream where my grandma blew up like a balloon and started chasing me around with a giant fly swatter. Jack's fear and anxiety dropped. He turned his head to look at him. What the hell, dude? Greg laughed after snapping his cell shut. I know, right? Freaking hate that hag. Won't surprise me if she completely dislikes me. I broke so much shit in her house as a kid. Jack rolled his eyes, fully pulling the covers over his head, wanting to get more sleep. Greg looked over and rose a brow. You said you had a dream, right? Remember it? Jack lay there in silence, wanting him to just leave already. The blonde furrowed his brow and began nudging Jack's back with his foot. Come on, tell me. I know you're awake. I had a dream about some guy preaching. And you say my dream was weird? I never said your dream was weird, but it is. Anyways, go on. Greg pulled his knees up, resting his arms on them as he listened. Jack sighed and rose up from his warm salvation of sleep. There was this guy preaching about some guy named Chernobog, and that he'd lead everyone to paradise with blood-stained hands. They were dressed in these weird-looking robes and wore these weird masks. Jack looked over to his friend, watching him give a weirded-out look. Bro, you've played way too much Silent Hill. Jack smiled a little and shrugged his shoulders, relieved that his friend had said his thoughts the night before. What can I say? I love horror games.
Sis, you're
I love horror games.
He's totally my type.
Greg left to meet up with his girlfriend, telling Jack he'd be back around 6. It was usually on Sundays when the two sat down together and played one of the many video games they had until it was time for bed. For Jack, that is. Sighing, he turned over the last page on his notes book, memorizing his handwriting slowly. Suddenly, a knock at the door tore him from his studying. Jack turned his head and eyed the door, then rose up from his desk to answer it. Pulling it open, he was surprised to see Jenny standing in front of the door.
How long have the streams been? I woke up like 15 minutes before the stream started. So not that long. I've only been up for like 5-6 hours. And I slept a solid 8. Mostly. Solid. It's only been 4? Wow, it feels like... But yeah, I've been awake that long, so it's fine. I'm good. No need to worry. Yeah, it's 5. Yeah, 5, because, I woke up at 9 and it's 4 for me. Okay. Anyway.
Oh, hey Jenny. Jenny smiled and waved. Hi Jack. What are you doing inside on a Saturday? Jack looked back to his desk before turning back to the girl. I'm getting my studying done early so I can relax and enjoy the rest of the day. Jenny nodded her head understandingly and placed her hands on her hips. Well, I'm sure you've done enough studying. You should come outside. Everyone's doing something today. Jack mentally sighed in relief. Good, so people were here today. I'll come out when I'm done, I guess. Jenny giggled and nodded again. Okay, see you later. And just like that, the student was off in a flash. Jack smiled a little before closing the door, making his way back to his desk. He sat down and began rereading the pages of notes, keeping everything fresh on his mind. Then it hit him. How did Jenny know where his dorm room was? They never really talked to each other, let alone shared dorm room numbers. It kind of gave him a creepy feeling at first. But then his realist side thought otherwise. Maybe she saw you come into this room once without you noticing. Maybe Greg had told her what room he lived in, and it just so happened that Greg and he shared rooms. Shaking his head in frustration, Jack rubbed his temples. You're just overanalyzing everything, Jack. No need to fret over pointless stuff, he said to himself, running his fingers through his hair. Maybe he was done studying for the day, after all. Again, he swiped up his hoodie off of his chair and slipped it back on, along with his shoes before heading outside. When he got to the bottom of the stairs, he felt himself breathe another sigh of relief when he saw how many students were up and about. Glad to know he wasn't going crazy. He watched as some people played ball, tossing either a football or baseball. Girls were huddled in groups outside, talking about Lord knows what. Not that he cared. He was just happy to see people. Just then, a hand crept over his shoulder. Jack looked back to see it was none other than Jenny again. Oh, hey Jenny. The girl smiled. You're outside of the dark room. Took my advice to come out, hey? Jack smiled nervously, giving a nod or two. You should hang out with me and my friends. We're going to go for a walk in the woods. Jack rose a questioning brow. For what? Jenny laughed. We're just hanging out at our place. Come on, don't be a wuss. Jack felt a little hesitant at first, but he slowly came around and agreed to follow. Jenny grabbed him by the hand and began tugging him along, making sure he was close. Hooray! Off to the cave! The cave? Jack asked, watching the forest grow bigger with every step. Our hangout, silly. Sarah found it at the beginning of the year, so we decided to make it a hangout area for us. Us? Jack asked again, looking back over his shoulder, watching the school slowly get consumed by trees. Me, Sarah, Bobby, Fred, and Luna. You ask a lot of questions. Jack couldn't help but let out a nervous laugh. Sorry, I don't mean to. I've just been having a rough weekend is all. Jenny looked back at him and smiled. It's okay. We all have our days. As minutes passed,
We're halfway done. Opinions on story. That was so aggressive. I'm so sorry. Okay. Do you mean it's okay, or do you mean okay, I'll tell my opinion? I didn't mean to. Well, I mean, it hasn't gotten to, like, the actual story, I guess, like the creepy part of the story, so fair enough. I mean, you're here for creepy pastas, not failing relationship. Anyway. Excuse me. Hello?
the
Thank
two
you.
walked along what seemed like an invisible path that only Jenny could see. Jack couldn't help but begin to worry. He was about to open his mouth to ask another question
Stop.
when the girl released his hand, punching her fist in the air. "We're here," she sang, running ahead of the boy. Jack looked up to see a rather large cave next to a babbling brook. He watched as two girls and boys appeared from inside it, greeting Jenny happily, until they saw Jack. Their smiles faded, and they began leaning into Jenny, whispering while keeping their eyes on him. Jack felt a little nervous, feeling as if he shouldn't be there at all, and that he should be back at his dorm room playing Silent Hill. But Jenny looked back as well, gesturing to him to come forwards like it was okay.
Stop!
The brunette took a deep breath before making his way over, eyeing over everyone but Jenny. All of them still didn't look pleased, despite their forced smiles. Hey. Jack rose a hand, giving a wave. Sarah eyed him over before crossing her arms. "Hi," she said bluntly. "Hey," said Bobby and Luna. "Sup?" Fred smiled, shoving his hands in his pockets. "What's he doing here, Jen? I thought it was just going to be you." Jenny rolled her eyes at Sarah's statement and wrapped an arm around Jack, her free hand patting him on the chest. "I thought it would be cool if you guys met Jack. He's a really cool guy, honest." Luna and Bobby looked at one another while Fred nodded. "I've heard about him. Straight A student, smart kid." Fred walked over to Jack and began leading him inside the cave, rambling on about what kind of video games he liked, leaving the group outside. Sarah shot daggers towards Jenny. Jenny gave a stink eye back. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Jen? You can't let outsiders into. He's not going to find anything out. Be nice for a change, Sarah." Sarah glared, then grumbled under her breath, following after Fred. Luna and Bobby looked at one another before going in as well. The group settled inside, everyone huddled around a fire in a circle. Jack sat in between Jenny and Fred, while the others completed their small circle. Jack felt uncomfortable, especially with Sarah giving dirty looks every so often. But surprisingly, the evening wasn't all too bad. Everyone got to know a bit more about him, asking questions and talking about what they enjoyed doing, talking about school and exams. Jack looked around the cave as they spoke. It was cool inside. They had tables and desks, places where they set up books. They even had a compartment for food. It really was like a place to hang out. I guess I worried about nothing, Jack thought, smiling at the comment Fred made. There was a sudden clap of thunder from the distance, causing the group to look up at the entrance of the cave. Another storm? Sarah complained, rising up with a book bag over her shoulder. I'm leaving. Last thing I want to do is get caught in the storm. Bye. Sarah turned on her heel and ran over to her bike, resting up against a tree, and rode off back to the school. Luna and Bobby both rose up together. We don't want to get wet either. We'll catch you guys later, okay? Luna said, smiling over at Jack and the others. The duo both pulled their book bags up off the ground, running off to try to beat the storm. Fred didn't move. I'm gonna stay here for a bit. There's some things I need to get back here. You guys can go ahead if you want. Jack looked to Jenny before getting up off the stool. Yeah, I'm gonna go back too. Greg is probably back and might be wondering where I am. Jenny smiled up at him and nodded. Okay, I'm gonna help Fred. Just follow the same path back to the school. I'll see you later, Jack. Jack smiled and waved goodbye to the two. He made his way out of the cave and into the forest. It shouldn't be too hard to get back if he followed Luna and Bobby from afar.
The Mafia Nanny.
The Mafia Nanny?
Ease, opening up the door to find Greg on his laptop on the sofa. Greg looked up and smiled. Yo, Jack, where have you been? He asked, surprised that Jack had stepped out altogether. I was invited to come look at some secret base in the forest behind the school, he replied, closing the door behind him while he began kicking off his shoes. Greg rose a brow, closing his laptop. Oh really? Invited by who? You know that Jenny girl in our first period class? Greg's smile slowly faded. Dude, she's weird. Jack furrowed his brow in confusion. What do you mean she's weird? Weird like how? Greg looked away nervously before answering. You know what kind of shit she reads? She has like books upon books about these freaky-ass cults. I shit you not. Jack rolled his eyes before walking over to his dresser. Dude, I'm serious. You probably shouldn't hang out with her. People who read that stuff are messed up in the head. Yeah, whatever. Jack
Well, I don't
replied,
like you either.
rummaging around through his clothes. I'm gonna take a shower. We have another storm coming. Greg blinked and looked back at their window. Oh man, really? I was gonna go out with Gabby tonight, he moaned sadly, watching the clouds turn into a deep grey. Jack chuckled at it.
He was saying how people who read up on read up on cults are weird. Which is like so stupid because I read into cults and stuff. I'm not weird. Well, I'm not that weird. But still, why are you so offended for us having hobbies, Mr. Jockman? Play.
Friend, before going into the shower. Jack, wake up. Wake up, Jack. Jack felt Greg shake him, groaning in anger.
What?
What?
I never
What
said
is
that.
it? He asked, looking up at a nervous Greg. Greg looked over to the window. Dude, someone's out in the forest, lighting fires. Jack rubbed his eyes with his palm. Do what? Someone is outside, lighting fires. Look. Greg pulled him out of his bed and pointed out towards the forest. Jack sighed, still rubbing his eyes.
Pardon? I hate to inform you this, kiddo, but it's not Toby. I'm sorry, but it isn't Toby.
Before looking out the window, to his surprise, there was a fire lit, but it was far back into the woods, almost around to the area where Jenny's secret base was. Well, I'll be damned. There is a fire, he muttered, noticing that the storm had stopped. What time is it? 2 a.m.? We should go check it out. That looks like it's where their little hideout is. Greg gave Jack a freaked out look of, "You're out of your freaking mind." What? I'm sure there's a perfectly good explanation why someone's out there lighting fires. Yeah, for colds. Jack shot him a look. Dude, get over yourself. There is no cold. I call bullshit. I'm not going. Jack smirked. You chicken? He asked, watching Greg get flustered. Dude, seriously, don't go. Last thing you want is to get in trouble. Jack rolled his eyes. Whatever, I'm gonna check it out. If there's anything wrong, I'll report it to the headmaster. Jack changed out of his pajamas, dressing into jeans, a blue t-shirt, along with his black hoodie and shoes. Pulling out their emergency flashlight from the desk drawer, Jack walked over to the door. I'll see you in a bit, he called out, watching Greg shake his head. Curiosity killed the cat, man. Killed the cat, he called back, watching the door close. Jack pulled his hoodie over his head and began making his way down the stairs. It was probably just Jenny and her friends hanging out at their spot late at night. I mean, loads of people do that, right? The second he walked outside, Jack felt the air shift from normal to damp and chilly. He began making his way towards the forest, using the flashlight as much as he could to follow the path Jenny led him down the previous day. Jack started growing nervous, listening to the sounds of life, of night in the forest. Easy now, Jack. There's absolutely nothing that can hurt you in this forest. Nothing. Minutes passed as Jack finally began getting closer to the cave Jenny
I hate
showed
my
him
life.
before. He could see the dim light from afar, and talking, loud talking, but it didn't sound like Jenny or Bobby or anyone else from their group.
Do you also keep getting scared by the
The
ads?
closer he got, the clearer the voice. Turning off his flashlight, Jack peeked around a tree. What he saw shook him to his core. There, standing outside of the cave, was a group of robed people. Judging by their height, they were students, both male and female. They all wore black robes and blue mouthless masks with big eyeless holes. One of them began stepping up to a podium. He rose his hands up in the air. Thank you, my brothers and sisters, for joining me this night of nights. Tonight is the night when we summon our Lord and Saviour, Chernobog. The group below him cried and called out things like, Praise Chernobog and All Hail Chernobog. Tonight is the night when Chernobog will choose his sacrifice, the one who will lead us to paradise and free us from this hell. The group of students began cheering, chanting the name of Chernobog. Jack shook his head in disbelief, slowly backing up from the tree he hid behind. Oh my God, there really is a cult, he murmured. Jack turned to run back to the school, only to be stopped by Jenny, who was standing there the whole time. Jenny, thank God you're here. Jack ran over to her. There's this cult thing. We need to tell someone. Jenny smiled. Cult? There is no cult, Jack. You're just overreacting. She chuckled, suddenly feeling Jack shake her by the arms. No, listen to me. We need to get out of... Jack's words were cut off when a rock connected hard with his temple. His eyes fluttered slightly, stumbling back before collapsing on the ground with a thud. Blurry figures began circling around him as he watched Jenny smile down at him. Then, everything went black. Jack awoke to a bucket of cold water being dumped over his head, blood trickling down the side of his head onto his ear and the side of his face. He winced, feeling his head throb in pain. The second he remembered the last thing he saw, he gasped, looking up to see that he was sitting in front of everyone. His arms were held firmly behind his back. The leader of the cult walked up in front of him and smiled under the mask. Chernobog has found his sacrifice. Hail Chernobog, he called, listening as the group repeated the phrase. Jack attempted to struggle, the pain of his head fighting against him. You shall become one of Chernobog's sons, the chosen one to live upon this wretched world and do his bidding. The group cried the phrase once more. Jack shook his head as fast as he could. No, all of you are crazy. Let me go, he yelled, letting out a yelp of pain from his arms being twisted. The leader laughed, turning to the group behind him. Come, my brothers and sisters, help me change this non-believer into the son of Chernobog. The group chanted the phrase, stepping closer to form a large circle around him.
Stop
Praise
spamming T.
Chernobog, for his blood-stained hands will bring salvation to us all.
I was fine with you spamming
He
sacrifice,
shall bring
but
us
not
closer
just
to our
T.
everlasting paradise. He is our Lord and Saviour. Praise Chernobog. Praise Chernobog, he cried once more.
Sacrifice.
Jack listened as the group began chanting in a different language. He felt his heartbeat grow faster, watching one of the group members walk before them with their tray of tools and other queer objects. The person pulled their mask off, revealing it to be Jenny. She smiled, taking a spoon from the tray. Isn't this great, Jack? The great Lord Chernobog has chosen you to be his son. Jack shook his head, tears flooding his eyes. I never knew you'd be the one. No, Jenny, no, please don't do this, he begged, watching her stop in front of him. She giggled, placing her hand on his forehead. All hail, Lord Chernobog. The girl then stabbed the spoon in his left eye,
that kind of
ignoring
queer.
the cries of pain Jack let out. He squirmed and struggled against the two who held him down, feeling his eye being gouged out from its socket. Hold still, Jack. You'll make me kill you, Jenny said with complete calmness as she began working on his other eye, watching blood spurt and trickle down his face. Still ignoring his cries and pleas, the leader stepped in, holding a bowl of black hot ooze in his hands. Behold the sight of Chernobog, he called, watching Jenny hold his head still and began pouring the tar-like liquid inside his eye sockets. Jack let out a blood-curdling scream of pain, feeling the substance overflow and trickle down his eyelids. Placing his hand on Jack's forehead, the leader began chanting the same language as the others, watching as Jack's body became limp and lifeless. He watched as Jenny held a book open to a passage of a different language. Rise, great Lord Chernobog. Rise and take vessel of the sacrifice we give you. Give yourself to this vessel. Be one with this vessel.
Yes, very gross.
Rise, great lord. Chernobog. Rise. 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 Panting heavily, Jack rose up from the now dead body of Bobby, yanking off the mask he wore like the others. Standing up, he looked over the massacre he created. Every single person was dead, masks torn off, throats slashed, guts cut open, eyes gouged out. His hood and pants were stained with blood. Scalpel in hand, Jack turned to the last living person. Jenny, borderlining death, watched as he stepped above her. His skin had turned black, teeth sharpened to a point, nails long and sharp. He wasn't human anymore. She smiled, blood leaking from her mouth as she spoke. Release me into everlasting paradise. Jack growled low, teeth showing. You don't deserve paradise. None of you do. He knelt down, swiping the mask from the ground. Burn in hell, all of you. Jenny watched as he pulled the mask on, the black substance trickling down onto the mask from his eyes. She grabbed a hold of his ankle weakly, begging to be released to paradise, only to have him pull away from her before walking off into the shadows. She cried, tears rolling down her face as she called out to him until her last breath. This just in. The group of students have been slaughtered at West Point College. Autopsy reveals everyone's kidneys have been removed for reasons unknown. Many believe it has to do with the supposed cultist act at the school. Student Jack Nichols has been reported missing. More tonight at 9. This video was made possible by the generous support of my patrons.
That was the news report after the whole cult thing went down. Just a little fun ending. Well, that's the end of Eyeless Jack's story. My mom is about to wake up. And I don't think she wants to hear me, listening to creepypastas and talking to chat. She does love you guys, but yeah. Fun. Did I use the wrong words? Was the weird more like fair enough? Well, that's all for tonight's live, guys. See you tomorrow for another one. Bye.